Welcome back, dear ones, to the Phoenix Priestess podcast on the Sanctuary. Today, we have one of my dearest sisters, Tisha. And Tisha, I have to begin by saying that Tisha has not only been one of my dearest soul sisters for decades, but she has also been one, if not my most important or main midwife in the last couple of years. So I really just wanted to begin and take a moment to say thank you, Tisha, for being there. And all of those moments where I had gone under a transformation without even knowing it consciously, and then birthed something new. And so she was my midwife for my first book. And she has been a midwife along the way every time I have been creating something. So, welcome, Tisha. I actually want to begin with a reading from Soul Satiation that I opened up as a prayer before we get to hear our beautiful Tisha. So, like Earth's spa treatment, a soul salve is anointed back into ourselves. Each woman's red door, her innate key inside, with an opening that says, "Oui, oui, mademoiselle," will come back inside. We've been awaiting at your entryway. Jime, Jime, enséñame tu alma. So, welcome, Tisha, on this new moon in Aquarius, on this Chinese New Year, on the number 9 numerology year. She is a snake. She is a sun in Scorpio, and she is a manifesting generator. And one of the sacred themes that came through today to invite you to speak into is you are the most magnificent, magical. So the theme that came through was magic within, like, the mess. Like, you are one of those beings that every time I am around you, either on a phone call or live or with your daughter, you are in the realm of magic. So in this new moon day that symbolizes so much for so many people, what do you want to share about magic in your life at this moment, or that you want to collectively share to the masses?
Oh, see. I think what's coming through is just an invitation to the collective to remember your own true magic.
Hmm.
Yeah, there's an invitation of remembrance of one's true magic and of true magic.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that has always, well, not always, it has woven in and out of my life from the beginning. But the person who has helped me remember the most would be my own daughter, and the gift that children can bring to us. That the child, it could be a child, but also the childlike spirit that remembers the magic that that is often unbound by limitations, um, and the confines of maybe society at large, or the adult experience that starts to take shape and form.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And how do you remember, like, the magic when you're actually going through, like, a messy moment? a messy timeline, like the phoenix. Like how do you personally remember magic in those
Mm.
moments, in like those dark, deep moments?
So for me, as of today, it's almost like it's just become like the air that I breathe.
Mhm. Mhm.
So it's just always with me, and it's almost like as if, it's like if you didn't have oxygen, you didn't have air, you couldn't breathe,
Yeah.
you would like suffocate and you couldn't go on. And that's how it feels for me.
Mhm.
Feels like if I am not living, breathing, weaving, remembering the magic, I feel like I can't breathe. I feel like I'm suffocating.
Mhm. Yeah.
So it's like a almost like a physical sensation, but it's because it's become so integrated, it's just like woven into my own mind.
Mhm.
So sometimes my daughter and I have said, okay, like let's look for the magic today, and we'll like use the actual words. It's almost as if, we're casting a spell to look for the magic. When you look
Mhm.
for the magic, you'll oftentimes, we certainly do, see it, find it, experience it.
Mhm. And do you literally just say like look for the magic?
Mm-hmm.
I've never asked you that. Oh my God, that's so good. That is so good. So, to our beautiful listeners, I do this for my private clients as well as I did it for Tisha. Um, I sit with what I call their soul mandala, and it includes numerology, astrology, human design, the archetypes, and it's so beautiful to hear you say this because it's giving me the image in human design. Um, your your I don't know exactly like the words to use, but the cross of the Sphinx is like what guides you in this lifetime. And I keep seeing when you were saying that of like literally like the image of the Sphinx in Egypt, and I don't know exactly where it is, but just like this feeling of you literally being one of these sacred beings who is here on this earth, who's at like the entryway, like foreseeing what are the riddles that people must cast, like you said, like that must cast in order to like enter and go to like the depths or go into the city or like go into like their inner soul journey. um and so when you said that, like it, I could like literally see you standing there as the Sphinx. And I know you're a Harry Potter lover. So I'm like wondering if you were, are, or whatever you call it, if you are that magical being, like what would be your riddle right now? And I know you said of just like remembering like the magic that already lies within.
You there?
Hello, beautiful. Are you back?
I am.
Oh, hey, I think my internet went off. I'm totally wondering, totally live here. Do you know that if it leaves, does it just come back, the recording?
It looks like it started again. Yeah.
So we'll just keep going.
Yeah.
We'll just keep going and see where it takes us. Where did I drop off?
The last I heard was saying the spell casting.
Okay, so right at the spell. I love it. So in this like news, like I don't know how much you want to share about your winter season that you have been living or that you have lived, or one of your last winter seasons, or one of your last phoenix seasons, or if you want to speak to this one, like what would be that personal riddle that's like waiting for you at this entryway, like as the Sphinx that you are?
Mm. What comes through to me really like present and clear is, as you say, the seasons, right? Like winter as a season and the cycles of moving through the seasons of life, and then, moving through the seasons through every like different phases of life, that this current winter season, Phoenix season,
Mhm.
um, that's that is slowly starting to initiate is almost like a return, right? Like as a cycle, there's an there's a beginning, and then on every the other side of every beginning, there's an ending, and then there's a beginning on every side of the ending. It just continues.
Mhm.
So in the cycle and the return is what it feels like, but the return to the the truest authentic self.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's kind of who I've been in communion with. Um, but it's almost as if to allow for that to happen requires like the shedding, right? Like the peeling away of all the layers that got packed on
Mhm.
to the authentic self and covered to some extent. And so throughout this winter season of death, of shedding, of releasing, it has been an initiation into that, the peeling away and the shedding of the layers that have covered, in a sense, and the authentic self
Mhm.
as that as what feels, I suppose, as what feels like both a new and true and authentic self
Mhm.
emerging, you know, as the spring comes around.
Mhm. And do you have words like in this winter season of things or either inner or outer that you feel like you've had a shed? I mean,
Mm,
I know you said that, obviously, but like I know for me, I can only see it in hindsight. Like, oh, I when
mm,
I let go of this and I closed this and then I stopped doing this or saying this and then, I entered the spring season. Like, can you share with us if you feel like you have words? Because I know that sometimes we don't have the words because we're in in winter,
right.
in the current winter.
I can definitely feel that more words will come, but there have been two words actually that come through already clearly.
Mm-hmm.
And they're simply yes and no,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And in in communing with the authentic self, it's really asking, is this is this a yes or is this a no
Mm-hmm.
at every moment? And
Yeah.
what is this a true yes or a true no?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's like the internal and intuitive guidance system for me is is being clear from that place, and then knowing how to move like through time and space from that signature, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and the shedding piece of it, or I should say, there's a shedding but a reconciliation of like all the times that I said yes when I meant no, and
Mm-hmm.
all the times I said no when I really wanted to say yes.
Yeah. Yeah. You're you're sending me back like as the Sphinx that can see those like riddles. You're sending me back to a time in my life where I like you literally sent me back. I can see myself in my old kitchen in California in front, like cooking something, and then like literally in my body getting these sensations like, oh, I need to pee. I need to stop now. No, then my mind going like, no, no, I'll do it in a couple of minutes after I check this. So it was like you sent
Hmm.
me back to like those very like sometimes it's just such an inward experience of like remembering this relationship with our yeses and our nos and how sacred and important they've always been, and how, for many different reasons, we haven't lived really in that natural flow moment to moment of what you're being called to say yes and no to.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the inward. And I love that example that you give because of just like taking care of one's like, biological needs, because it really stems back like that early on from, the time that we've from our earliest like childhood maybe memories of like sustenance, like, right, like that something smelled, either smelled good or smelled bad as a young child, and then that child is has like a connection internally that's saying yes or no,
Mm,
right? But then the external world, the adult world, is not always matching up, right?
mm,
So if a child's saying no, maybe the adult's like forcing a yes. And if
mm,
the child's saying yes, the adult is forcing a no. And
mm.
that's where that like disconnection and that rift starts to happen. That's severed, like being severed
Yeah.
from the internal guidance system. And then that just continues. And that's, that has been probably my experience for like many, many years. And
Mhm.
it evolved into, like friendships and, you know, places I wanted to go, places I didn't want to go, things I wanted to study, things I didn't want to study, career choices, like literally all along the way.
Mhm.
So it feels right for me personally, like at this moment of my life, that I am returning to like that origin of the true yes and the true no, and then being able to act from that place.
Yeah. So I know you know that you're a manifesting generator. I think we've talked about that
Mm-hmm.
at some moment. And you having like your sacral response and being in that alignment in this era, like literally is like the roots, like the roots,
Yeah.
like to the roots to your rebirth in this a new season. So I love you saying that, because for any of us that are manifesting generators and have like a sacral response system, what I'm hearing and sensing, and I know because Tisha's a dear sister and we talk, like her relationship with her yeses and her nos, and her relationship with her yeses and her nos with her daughter, and how she's always weaved in and out of being so in tune with what her daughter is saying yes and no to, and how to have like that dance between what you are wanting and needing and then what she is wanting and needing, and how can you support her in what she is wanting and needing. That like that you're really reminding us, okay, now we're gonna speak into like the collective cry of like the Aquarius and Pluto in Aquarius and new moon in Aquarius, of like the collective change that is like wanting to be like had. And it so stems, like as you say, of really remembering that at our core, we are made of magic. We know what magic feels like in our bodies, and we know what is a magical yes and what is like a magical no. Like what will open the the riddle box and what will not. So
Mm,
so thank you for reminding us that, because I do feel like that, practically speaking, like in this next generation, in this next 200-year cycle with Aquarius, in like everything that is opening up right now in the portals, what Tisha has reminded us is like going back to those minute rememberings in our physical body, and like our emotion, like our emotional center, of like how that helps us to feel more aligned, and how that wakes up our inner magic. Is, I feel like, thank you for gifting us that remembrance today.
mm, my pleasure. Yeah. And the next word that's woven in with the yes and the no, but it's like the overarching umbrella,
Mhm.
which is I feel at least is my like highest core value is freedom.
Mm, mhm,
Yeah, is being in like our truest expression of freedom is to be able to be free to say no and to say yes
mhm.
when it's our truth.
Yeah. And again, you're giving us like collective juju, because Aquarius like is the, like, I literally wrote it down and I'd never seen it in these specific words, but I put the spiritual rebel, but then I put this like equals revel, where Aquarius, being the air sign, like is here to gift us like that, like those freeing winds that will allow us to like revel in feeling more open, more giving, more, that can transform the collective, because that's one of the gifts of Aquarius, to like through communication, through technology, through, people say medicine, but I feel like it's more of a, it's like the essence of the winds of like the winds of change, in that
Mm-hmm.
sense of like the internal winds of change, where that the medicine inside of you is like being transmuted, rather than like, oh, I take this medicine and that medicine heals me. Like
Mm-hmm.
you are the medicine.
Yeah.
So thank you yeah, for the freedom call is what I'm hearing. Like, you also remind us that this is literally also a time to remember that freedom is really our birthright.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes,
Mm.
absolutely.
Hmm.
Yeah. Mm.
You know, I wrote down as one of your soul mandala, little like igniting insights that came through. I was like, I wrote down two main things for now, but a keeper of the keys, and creating is your cause. So like when I kept looking at your chart, and like knowing where you are also as a dear soul sister in your life, and knowing that Aquarius is also like, they're the collective changers, equity, um, bringing things more like an equilibrium, and you having a North Node in Libra, which is about relationships. And you've spoken about like that relationship with yourself, that relationship with your daughter. Um, what would, like, with creating and your innate ability to always be, like you said, like it's just I think that you said like the air that you breathe or the water that you drink, with like your magic. um, like I'd love to hear about your art. like whatever you feel like sharing about your relationship with your art or making your art or how it feels, anything at all. Because I loved it. I loved seeing when it came through, like creating is your cause. Like it's like the activist in you,
Yeah.
like that is her cause. She just wants to be in creation mode. Like feel that
Yeah.
fire of like, of being in co-creation.
Yeah. Um, so I think my life story has started at a place where I didn't always feel free
Mm,
because and I didn't always feel free and I couldn't thrive the way probably I would have wanted to, right? Because survival was the priority. And so that in and of itself created a frame of limitation. Um, that then continued on for many years and is still in play, but is definitely in a process of transmutation. And so it's almost as though like the arc of the story is now again that return to freedom
mhm,
and thriving as the survival program is retired, one step, one piece at a time.
mhm,
And it then it's like the shackles come off and I'm literally free to create,
mhm,
um, unbounded, right? And can be in a space that feels, peaceful and safe so that then that, you know, the intuitive guidance and the creative flow can come out. So anytime I'm making art, it's always because it's come from inspiration,
mhm,
like something, which is oftentimes that inspiration is directly connected to like the spark of magic. And
mhm,
it might be the magic, through nature or through animals or through people or in my life or, memories or but that's at the personal level that's also woven through with a collective, mm, kind of as you say, like the activist,
mhm,
that the activist archetype that's like making a statement of sorts and sending a message through like the tangible physical creation of whatever that is. And it doesn't have to be necessarily, or for me at least, like a big piece. It's not necessarily like a really big creation. It can be something really small. It could be something big, but for the most part, it tends to come through in sort of like these like drops. It's
mhm,
like a little drop here, a little drop there, then all the drops add up, right?
mhm,
But if someone were to ask me, I could probably tell you like every single piece of artwork or creativity that I make, like I can tell you the why and I can tell you what was that inspirational, you know, magical spark
mm.
that brought that forward.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm gonna take a minute and I'm gonna invite us to take a minute because you've literally like dropped infinite drops of wisdom to remind us that every time we do something from like consciousness and care and connection, like that memory is held in our bank.
Mm.
And just like the invitation for us to be reminded that every act can be made like from that magical well. And like you said, like you remember what each drop tastes like, or felt like, or, was inspired by.
Yeah.
So to us all, it's like the more we can stop that like continuous like wheel of just you know, doing the next step just because we have to do the next step, but like we've already forgotten when we do the next step, like, oh wait, why did I do that? And we're just like in that unconscious mode. Thank you for reminding us of like the depth of the why. Like when we're in that deep connection of feeling that freedom to create in the moment when you're feeling inspired, like it's almost like you spoke like keepers of the keys medicine just now. Like you see
Mhm.
everything. Every
Yeah, exactly.
every key, every drop. That was that
Yeah.
memory. That was that memory. Oh,
hmm That can just kind of unlock,
yeah.
this one small example kind of I feel like weaves it all together was one of the more recent experiences um where at like the holiday bazaar or a holiday bazaar, and I had made, I make little peaceful creatures,
Hmm.
and they're like meditating peaceful creatures, and they were ornaments. And a woman came up to me and she pointed to two of them and she said, I need these.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I was like, I looked at her and I said, I completely understand.
Uh-huh.
Right. And it's like, that was her internal yes. Like, it was an absolute, without a doubt, yes. She felt that there was something there that activated her, right? That, you know, brought her online within her own heart. And then from that absolute yes, she
Hmm.
took action. And then she brought words to that. And
Hmm.
like that was all we said to each other. And then I just packed up her ornaments and gave them to her.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I love that. It was like water in the Sahara, in like the desert. It's like, yes,
hmm It
this is.
was like you're saying, it was like those were like keys for her to unlock something,
Ah, I see. Oh, I love that.
you know? And
Hmm.
she it worked. Like it
Hmm.
was for her.
And
And
you knew that
oftentimes that'll happen.
you beautiful.
Exactly. And I just
Mhm. That's
looked
what
at
I
her and
call
was
you,
like,
witch
yeah,
bitch. You're like, uh-huh, I see.
exactly. Looked right at her, was like, yeah, I completely understand.
Mm.
And those were the only words that were exchanged.
Yeah. You have this step to you, Tish, that is just so magnificent. Like it's like your well of wisdom really does keep very subtly. It's like like an IV where it like
Yeah,
drips at
drip.
but it drips at the perfect moment, girl. So thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you for that within you. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Hmm. Tish, I am wondering, do you have, when you're talking about yeses, do you have any, I love I love speaking about our yeses and nos as fuck yeses and hell nos. And hell nos are like hell, like I don't want to keep taking myself back to hell. That's why I call, because I know in the collective I've heard a lot of people say hell yeses, and it just clicked it within me one day. I was like, within the sacred feminine mystery, it's like it's more of like a fuck, like I want to fuck when it's a yes. I don't want to fuck
Yeah.
when it's a no. And so like what are your, I mean, I've heard a lot of your yeses, I feel like, but do you have any right now that like stand out that are like hell knows that like you don't want to go back there? No more, no more in
Mm.
lifetime. I mean, I know that we sometimes take ourselves back. Like, I just want to make a parenthesis. Like, it is natural and normal that we as humans continue to, like, go momentarily for a day. Like, I do feel like the time frame gets shorter the more we grow in our own, wisdom, our holy wisdom well. Um, like, it's not a perfect thing that we will never, you know, allow ourselves to feel and be immersed in our own no, and then realize, oh, I just took myself to a no. But what, yeah,
Yeah,
but what comes through for you?
like you say, it's a dance, right? And
Hmm.
so I think the way I am dancing, frankly, right, with my like hell knows is is that there's a certain like honoring of the awareness of that hell no for me
Hmm.
these days at least. And that's like abstract. So to bring it to like something practical, it's really come to down to fear and being able to reflect all the moments that I have lived with so much fear about so many things in my life. And that feels like hell to me. Like that
Mm,
feels like hell on earth to
mm,
live and breathe and move and think and, choose from fear.
yes. Hmm. Oh my gosh, full body chills. Like, the top of my head is like, ding.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
And again, it's right. That is what unlocks the freedom then.
Yeah.
Because for me, the more I step out of fear, I see it, I step out of it, I make a different choice, then the more free. So that's my absolute 100% yes.
Mm,
And so, yeah, I say it's a dance too, because it's not like I'm living in isolation and I have other beings in my home and in my life.
mhm,
And, they have fears. It is
mm.
not to say that I have no fears, but I definitely have a lot less fear than I ever have in my life thus far.
Yeah.
Um, but it's just all part of the journey, right? And the work that goes into like, it's like it's blood, sweat, and tears to an extent to really like see the fire and then go step and stand in the fire,
Mm,
right?
mhm,
So that's what's most present with me is I'm very clear when um there's any circumstance or choice presented to me. It could be about me, for me, about my life that's coming from, is it coming from fear, or is it going to come from freedom? And
mhm,
I feel like that's a choice
mhm,
to some extent, at least for me in my life circumstances. Yeah, and that has been, I would say, what feels like my greatest hell, to be afraid, right? Like afraid to take that chance and, engage with that project, afraid to say this, afraid to, you know, go to this place, afraid. It's like over and over again, right? And that is like living hell.
mhm. Yeah.
And and I've sat with this a lot in reflection and like deep contemplation meditation, that um it's an interesting place to be in my own like existence, when I think of like, okay, so if I'm like burning away layers of fear, then like what are they, right? Like what am I afraid of? And to feel like I've come to a place of, there isn't much there right now.
Mm-hmm.
And some years back, I wrote and published an article about this, that my biggest fear and the experience I had was, and it's intense as a parent, but it's like my child dying.
Mm-hmm.
That's been my greatest fear. And to some extent, if I thought with my logical mind, that would still be probably the greatest fear. However, I like quickly redirected internally to know that, like, it's just an intuitive knowing that that's not are going to be like our experience. I mean, yes, there's the mortality of being a human for, I guess, all humans as we know it right now, but that, I I think it helps to neutralize that fear of like, oh, like if she is she gonna go cross the street and get hit by a car kind of thing, right? Like those kinds of
Mm-hmm.
repeating constant fears that I have really um, kind of like been burning away piece by
Mm-hmm.
piece.
Mm-hmm. And freeing her in the
Yeah,
process as well. Mhm.
yeah, yeah,
If you free
exactly.
yourself, free yourself from those fears.
Right, right.
And
Because,
Mhm.
yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think that you're also speaking to, I don't think it's the only elephant in the room, but definitely one of the biggest that we as parents don't want to speak about, which is that we do because of what we fear. Like that we
Hmm.
do towards our child, to our child, for, like in parentheses, we're doing this for, to to help them because we don't want, but underneath that it's is because we fear that dot 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 could happen.
Right, right, right. Which I've come to understand for myself as, fear is essentially just being programming.
Mm-hmm.
And if one were to sit like in contemplation, reflection, like, okay, so what are all like the like fear-based thoughts? Okay. Now, you know, I've adopted those and made them mine, but where did they came from somewhere, right? Whether they came from our own parents, family, culture, society, environment, right? You could just see the layers and layers of fear-based programming that it becomes like this calcified shell, right? Until one decides, and it's certainly been my choice to just not want to live like that anymore. Because
Mm-hmm.
as you say, it's like living in hell.
Mm-hmm.
And I've wanted to make a different choice. So every day it's like making a different choice,
Mm-hmm.
one that lines up with the true yes or the true no.
Mm-hmm. Mm. I love that you're sending me to like the beginning when you were sharing, and it's almost like this feeling like as we, like I'm just like talking like collective wise, like as we continue to free our fears, we're able to be more deeply attuned to our own magic and to the magic of our child that's come here to show us, their own magic, so we can also keep remembering our own magic
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
how like essential like our own inner journeying to like remember what are our yeses and what are our nos as adults again And it doesn't matter so much like not staying so long in the like, oh, and it doesn't mean that like honoring our seasons, right? And how long we each have our own seasons, but I can name that it feels like you and I are in a season where we we have journeyed a lot internally
Yeah.
to reap those, reap the golden nugget, the golden nuggets, and and knowing that it's not even a chasing magic. It's like that we're made of magic, and that remembrance is
Hmm.
like at the core, always reminding us,
Yes.
like,
Yes.
what are we going to do with this gift that is our magic in this lifetime?
Yes. Yes. It's like that's the illusion, right, of the separation even. I love how you just framed it that way. It really resonates with me because it's like it's not magic like this trick, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or this thing that's outside of us, but
Mm-hmm.
rather it's that we are the magic, right? So from our own essence, we can then create magic from ourselves because we are the magic,
Mm-hmm.
and then we can share that, right? And it's almost like when you're on that channel, then you like there's this rendezvous um there's rendezvous moments all the time throughout your life. Like you just, go buy groceries and like look for the magic and
Mm-hmm.
you will find it. I mean, many, many times I've had that experience. Like it's in the day, in the daily, on the daily
Mm-hmm.
life. It's not necessarily like you have to go off and do, have this big experience. Although you can, and I certainly have, but it's like, usually that then gets like, how do you integrate that and bring that back to your everyday life?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the illusion of separation, which is that, there's magic and then there's us, kind of, right? It's like that's the illusion. And in a sense, like the world and the game, if you will, of like the duality, right? Of dualities that we're in, which we can play in while still remembering that that really we're all unified. It's all unified and it's all one. And
Mm-hmm.
that was just to give us the contrast of like a different experience, right? To split and to have the duality. So it's
Mm-hmm.
almost like I I walk through my I walk through my daily life with that understanding for myself, at least, that what resonates with me is that yes, there's this like perceived experience of separation, and there's also this knowing of like oneness
Mm-hmm.
existing at the same time.
Mm-hmm. I love how you just spoke about being like a magical mama fester. Like I feel like I'm gonna have to re-listen to this because because you're like totally reminding us. Okay, for those human design nerds out there, Tisha's a manifesting generator. And let's notice that she hasn't gone to say like, and I manifested dot dot dot. And this is how I manifested dot dot dot. And you can manifest dot 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 when you do dot dot dot. Like you've really spoken to like I don't even know if I have words, but it feels like to the embodiment of what being a magical manifester really is.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah,
Because I think that we have so much of what I just spoke about. We have so much of that mirrored already in our collective. And I just really want to thank you for continuing to be like that sage, that sage sounding board, reminding us, yes, we can play like that. And like you just do it with such depth that I know that those beauties listening out there will really receive from what you just like revealed to us, that it's like really about, and I think again, like she's a sun in Scorpio, public persona number in numerology, number 7. This is her 7. This year, you're in a 7 number year, but also she's a snake. So it's like that Scorpio, those, like you take us deep, girl. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
You don't just take us to
Yeah.
the numbers like it. I mean, you do. You do, but you're like, and to infinity.
Yeah.
Ah, thank you, Tish.
You're so welcome. Thank you.
Is there anything
I love
else
hearing.
that you want to share or speak to or sing to or
I'm coming back to once again just the invitation remember, to remember the magic, but also how we are magical beings. And it almost feels like it's been the best kept secret
mm-hmm.
that, it is its time to be revealed, like once again. And, you know, within the human design model, there was definitely a time where I, actively tried to manifest things
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
etc. Um, and hey, like if that is someone's jam and it's like that's the step on their process and their journey, like keep going and play
Mm-hmm.
with it.
Yeah.
And I think those steps have led me to a place now where like I think if someone were to ask me like, well, how do you do this, right? Or how do you manifest this? Or how do you get this?
Mm.
What feels most true for me personally is like to just be that.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
right? So if I'm talking about freedom and how I value freedom, um, and that if I want to experience that or quote like manifest that, then I have to be that. Like I have to be the embodiment of freedom.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That it really has nothing to do with that we're thinking that is going to be mirrored outside. Like that is what gives us the freedom.
Yeah. Yeah. Is that the minute it's like we step our toes into the beingness
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
of our dreams and desires, that's what creates like that magical momentum,
Yeah.
you know. And then the outer world reflects that,
Mm-hmm.
right? Is often my experience and what I see in others too. And then that's it's like a feedback loop because then we're like, oh, okay. So like I'm seeing it now, right? Now I'm like it's mirrored back to me and now I can like take another step into those waters of beingness,
Mm-hmm.
of being whatever it is that I, desire and dream of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Can you all see why and like why Tisha was my midwife for my book named Soul Satiation? Like you speak and like you speak and your like the resonance is satiation. Like when you speak, it's like, oh, she's giving me so much satisfaction with everything that she says. So no wonder she was, I'm just saying, no wonder she was my midwife. Oh, thank you. You sent me to one more thing to this week you shared with me the image of a beautiful art that your daughter made because she also had like a deeper activation this week. Do you remember like the
Mm-hmm.
words or any
Yeah.
like the like to doubly close with her magical medicine as well too?
Yeah. She had a big activation, a big experience, and then with that, uh, made a visual representation for herself. And it says, we are leaders, manifestors. We create our own lives. We don't need anyone but us.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, thank you, Mandy. And thank you, Tisha. May we continue to remember that we are made of infinite particles of magic. Have a beautiful, beautiful, blessed day. Thank you, Tisha, for joining me today. In this number 4, you are a life path number 4, which is about stability and structure, the number 4, and like solid, like that solid feeling within when we feel satiated. This has been such a satiating soul session, dear soul sister. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.